Okay, today we're going to follow up on the safety video that we were doing on the Glock Model 48, and today's safety is going to be following up on some questions that y'all asked me on YouTube. I had a lot of nice questions, some funny comments, a little bit of poking, which is fine. I'm not going to fall apart with that. But this is the response to these questions. The first thing I'm going to do before we even get to a question is I'm going to clear this weapon. So watch how I do this. Watch carefully. Step number one, make sure that finger is locked onto the slide, nice and straight like it's frozen. Step two, pull the mag out, set it aside. Rack, 1, 2. Then lock the slide to the rear. So I push up on the slide stop, pull the slide back, make sure it's locked. Very next step, pinky test the chamber, make sure there's nothing in the chamber. Pinky test the mag well, lay the gun facing like that so you can see into the chamber and everybody else can see that. Now that gun is clear. So that's how I do it. So we'll lay these aside. Notice I've got some of these have bullets in them and some don't, and you'll see why here in a minute. So here's the first question. When clearing your weapon, why do you use your pinky when you could just look? So let's put it back into condition like it was. Go ahead and let that spring off. So the question again, when clearing your weapon, why do you use your pinky when you could just look? And the answer is, let's do both for redundancy. So here we go. Let the mag out. That's the first step. Make sure that trigger finger's straight. Let the mag out. Mag is out, okay? Then we lock it to the rear. But first we go click, 1, 2 racks of the slide, lock it to the rear, and then we go for the pinky test. Why do we pinky test? Well, we can visually look and make sure that we see an empty chamber, but the reason we do both is because you can look and pinky test, because it might be in the middle of the night that you need to clear your weapon, make sure it's totally clear. Or the shell that's in there could be a dark color, like Wolf. They make a dark green metal case ammo. They may not even sell it anymore, but that doesn't mean that those are not still out there somewhere. So have a look. If you're in bright light, you can look. I still like to do this. That's a tactile feel. I burned this into my muscle memory many times over. So let's review it again. We'll put it just like it was in the beginning. Review so I get it right myself. There's the gun. Step one, make sure that finger, just pretend like you put it in the liquid nitrogen. Don't ever put it in liquid nitrogen, but pretend like it's frozen. Pick the gun up, finger is up here on the slide, not down here on the trigger, not down there, on the trigger guard. Up on the slide, drop the mag. Next step, rack, 2 times. Then push up on the slide stop, pulling back on the slide, let it go forward slowly. That is a slide lock. It's a stop and it's a lock. Say, how do you know it locks it? Well, it locks it because unless you pull down, it'll stay there. Here's a demonstration. Some people are scared of a pinky test because they're afraid this big machine will break their finger off. But watch this. Look at that. Watch carefully, muzzle not in my face. See that? So why is it not going forward? Because the lock is on. So that means when I take this pinky to test the chamber, you can't push your finger in there and release the slide at the same time. So there's no reason to be in fear. Say, my gosh, if it did get loose, it would break your finger off. Are we really sure about that? I mean, really? It just doesn't have that much pressure. So let's not worry about that. Last test the mag well with pinky. Now you can lay it down with that open, and we know that gun's clear. So that answers that question. Do a visual, do the pinky, do both. It's fine. So the next question was number 2. This is an intro to the Glock manual, and there is a biblical principle that says, in the mouth of 2 or more witnesses, let everything be established. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have 2 witnesses. One is going to be me, and the other one is going to be Mr. Gaston Glock. If you buy a brand new Glock, you get it in a box, it will come with a booklet like this. And if you don't have a booklet like this, you can just type in on Google and ask for a Glock owner's manual, and they'll give you a PDF format of this manual, and you can look this up. So in your Glock manual, Mr. Gaston Glock developed this. This was released in 1985 in the United States of America. But before that ever came to the U.S. of America, I had a Colt 1911, and I was already doing a pinky test long before this instruction book came out. I'm not the one that counseled him on this, but great minds think alike, I guess, and it is a good method. I was taught this when I was a kid. So if you turn to page number 20, I'm not going to read you all of this, but I will tell you this. One, it says lock the slide to the rear. So let's go ahead and pull the mag out. We'll lock the slide to the rear. We're going to do twice like that. Lock it to the rear. And then it says, once the slide is locked to the rear, both visually and physically with your finger, inspect both the chamber and the mag well. So here we go. I'm looking down in there. I'm looking down in there. A pinky test, make sure there's not one sawed off or the butt broke off or whatever. Make sure that's clear, and this is clear. Then it says after that, release the slide to return it to the forward closed position by either pressing the slide stop lever down or grasping the rear and letting it fly. So there you go. So once that goes to there, put the muzzle of the Glock pointed in a safe direction, which is the dirt, and pull the trigger. Is it going to go bang or is it going to click? Yeah, it's going to click. Okay, so that's an empty gun. So we'll leave it just like that right there. That's the condition. So the answer to the question is, where did you come up with that? Well, I was doing it long before Mr. Gaston Glock brought these into Walmart. These were right up in the front of the Walmart store in 1985. I've been in the Navy about 6 years. I got my first Colt government model about 1982. So I was pinky checking a 1911 pistol 3 years before these even hit the shores in America. So follow your instructions, it'll keep you safe. One thing he didn't tell you is, why do you rack the slide twice? So that's the next question. Why do you always rack twice? Now listen, Wolfie, I know you're not near smart enough or big enough yet to be training on the Glock, so let's just put you down, little girl, okay? You're a sweet little German Shepherd. Let's put you right down there for now. Okay, thank you. So the question is, why do you rack? I'm going to show you right now, okay? Now I'm going to go into slow motion so everybody sees what I'm doing. The people that do magic tricks, they move real fast, okay? They move real fast, and that's how they do a sleight of hand, but we're not going to move fast today. So here's the gun. You can see the gun. You know the condition, or you should know the condition that it's in. Here is a magazine. It has one bullet in it, one round, one live round. I'm going to call these bullets, so don't freak out. I know it's got a bullet in the casing, primer, and powder. We're going to call it bullets because that's what the average civilian calls these, is a bullet. So here we go. We put it in the gun. Make sure it's locked in there. Say, now, what if you come up to check this gun clear? Here's how I would do it. I would pull it like this and let that mag out. That's my first step with that finger good and straight. But somebody might get the order of operation wrong. So what they might do is they might rack the slide one time. Now watch carefully what happens. If you only rack once, here's what's going to happen to you. They rack it and then you go, oh, I was supposed to pull the magazine out. So then they say, let me get that out of the way. So they pull the magazine out and say, oh, yep, the gun's empty. And at that point right there, someone could easily die. Guess where that bullet is? Say, well, that's obvious. Is it? It's obvious to someone that's experienced, but it's not obvious to a new shooter. That round is now in the chamber. Watch carefully. Look at that. See that? Now I'm going to lock it to the rear. I'm going to do my pinky test. I'm going to pinky test here. Set it down. Now let's talk about this. Now let's do it where you made the mistake. Okay, let's say you made the mistake and you had the gun laying there like this, one in the magazine, sitting there like that, and you got your order of operation wrong. You didn't let the mag out first, okay? You made a mistake on the order of operation. So here's what you would do. Finger good and straight. This is wrong. This is the wrong way to do it. And you went, okay, I'm gonna rack, just like the man said. Rack, rack. See what happened? The live round just went off the deck and went down on the ground. That's okay. We'll get him back. So there him is. We don't want any magical bullets today that are somewhere where we don't know where they are. Him is right there. So the rack, what did that do? Let's review. We'll review it. Let's put this in here. That's in the gun. We walk up to it, we go rack. What does it do? Rack. That put that one round that was in the mag now is in the chamber. On the second rack, you're going to clear the gun. See that? See him over there, right there? So now the gun cleared, it locked on the empty mag, and then you get the presence of mind to say, oh, I was supposed to take the mag out first. Here we go again. So now, what's the next check? Pinky test the chamber, pinky check the mag well, and now we can say the gun is clear. So I'm hoping I hear a loud bang here any minute. No, we're not going to do that. So here's the round again. Now let's do it the right order of operation. Here we go, the correct way. The gun is laying on the table. It's got one round right there. Nothing up my sleeve, no magic. And the drill instructor or the man on the shooting line, he's the guy that's calling all the shots. You're out at the range, and he says, we're getting ready to take a break, everybody, so let's clear our weapons. Watch this slowly. I'm going to do it in slow motion. First thing that happens is that finger goes straight, lock straight. I pick up the gun carefully, and I put that right onto the slide. The very next step is to get rid of your magazine, because that's where most of the bullets are going to be stored. We drop that. Look at there. Hey, there's a live round right there. I could just stick it over here for right now. What's the next step? Rack. Twice. Once, twice. See that? Nothing came out. Well, it wasn't magic. We know where it was. It's right there. But now we've proved that there was not a live round in there. Further proof. Rack it to the rear and lock it by pushing up on the slide stop. Next test, visually look. I don't see anything. My eyes might be bad. Let me double check. There's a check. Look in there. Nothing in there. Feel around. Use that as your diagnostic probe. Make sure that thing is clear. Now it's clear. You can set it down and say, I'm ready for lunch. My weapon is clear. Always put it with the chamber facing up. Also, you put it like that. Somebody lets it close. Now you don't know exactly where you're at. But with it like that, now you know where you're at. Check it. We're good to go. So that's a very safe way. Do not feel like you're gonna snap your finger off, okay? If it would make you feel any better, I would put that in there. I've had some people, they were so concerned about my finger. Oh gosh, look at that. I just released the slide on my finger. Oh, it hurts. Guess what? It didn't break my finger off, okay? It's not a good thing to do. It's not a smart thing to do, but the way that this spring in here works, it'd have to get a lot of momentum, and if your hand is down in there, it can't generate any momentum. So it might put you in a bind, but this is not an M1 Garand. This is a little plastic Glock. So please don't freak out for seeing that someone put their finger right there. You're telling people that you're a very young, unknowledgeable, ignorant person when you say that's going to break your finger off. So you can stop saying that. We're not going to have that. No more. All right, so we did that. We did the pinky test. We did the rack first. We got all that. Now, why pinky test after doing a rack? Okay, here's the next question. Some people see this, they say rack. Okay, why are you going to pinky test after that? Here's the reason why. If your extractor claw, which is located right here, were chipped, or the case rim was chipped, you might rack that 50 times and not get that shell out, that live round out of the chamber, because your extractor claw had a little chip in it and it just happened to be that case had a little chip in the rim of it. There's just different things that can happen. So if you want to make 100% sure that that gun's empty, you do the rack, that would clear it in case you forgot the mag. But by raising that up and putting your finger in there, that is a 100% way of checking. That's why we do the pinky even after rack. Most of these systems are redundant and they overlap each other and it's just to make absolutely sure. I mean, somebody might say, well, you bet your life on it. Well, that's what you're doing when you're messing with a gun, playing with a gun, shooting the gun, whatever you want to call it. You're out there, you could be messing around, you could be handling it wrong, but if you follow all the safety rules, even if you did forget and made a mistake, as long as you're pointed in a safe direction when you do that dry fire, if you did leave a round in there and you're pointed at the dirt, it might embarrass you, but nothing has to be damaged and nobody has to die. So that's why we do that. So number 5, what is muzzle discipline? What is muzzle discipline? What is flagging? What is lasering? All right, we'll start off with this. We know that the gun's empty, but I'm going to show you one more time, okay? Rack, it's clear. I go up, lock it. I pinky test it that way. I pinky test it this way so the camera can see it. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and let that go forward. I'm going to dry fire it, take the pressure off. I'll show you a tool that I developed. This is for a brand new shooter that has never handled a gun. And what this tool does is it helps me observe them and burns in their brain that this is like it has a laser. This fiberglass stick right here, orange stick, represents a bright orange laser. So they have to learn how to not shoot my bowl of ammo and discipline their muzzle. They have to start treating this muzzle like it is putting out a laser or could put out a bullet at any given split second. So we want to make sure that they don't point that at somebody. You don't want to have my neighbor's house so they're close by, but you don't want to get an oddball angle like that. Now, I'm pointed towards the woods. You can't see it, but it's very safe. But my neighbor's house is right over there, so you start doing a 45-degree up angle towards him and accidentally let one go, you might shoot the neighbor, and you're going to get charged with involuntary manslaughter. So know which way your muzzle is pointed. Just keep it pointed in a safe direction as if that gun could go off. Always treat the gun like it's loaded. That's just the best way to do it. Say, what else does that do? Well, it kind of keeps you from passing this over your hand. Now, I don't want to do that with a real gun. I don't even want to stick my hand up there, even though I know the gun's empty. I don't want to do that. So we'll use a toy gun, and that's the purpose of this gun. Now, can we clear this one, make sure that it's all clear? Yeah, we can pull the mag out. We can cycle it, 2 times, and then I can pull the trigger and all that. That's an airsoft. I won't call it a toy because it definitely could put your eye out. So, but it's not a real gun. It's not going to kill you with a piece of lead, high-speed lead. So here's what I do. I try to instruct the students. I watch their trigger finger and see if they've got enough sense to start putting it there consistently. Burn that into your brain. Don't put it here. I'm guilty myself sometimes. I feel like I'm safe there, but the next thing you know, your nose starts itching. Instead of this trigger finger moving, you start moving over here. Something happens, you're down there. So go ahead and latch this all the way up onto the slide. You're not going to keep the gun from functioning, so don't worry about that. So what if it malfunctions and keeps the slide from moving? How's your slide going to move unless you pull the trigger? So that's silly. Just put it on the slide. You'll be fine. And then when you're moving your gun, watch it. Don't say, well, I need me some ammo, and you reach out here, and then you're pointing over here to be safe, and then you cross over. See, that's lasering right there. See what I'm doing? Brrr, you just sawed your own arm off with a laser. Flagging, it says the same term. You're flagging. You're using this like it's a flag. Now, see, I aimed at my neighbor's house. I aimed at a little baby squirrel over there. There's my wife's garden, almost blew her roses in half. Don't aim it at anything that you're not willing to destroy. So say, well, how do you reach and get that without, you know, I mean, you just set it down. Set it down. Just point it away from you. Get your ammo, set that like that. Then you can pick the gun up. You can put your mag in. See what I'm saying? You have to learn to discipline yourself so that that muzzle right there is never pointed at anyone. Now watch. This will happen if you're not really paying close attention. Now, I hate to do this to my camera crew, but they're just going to have to suffer here for just a split second. You can have a brand new shooter on the range, and you tell them, okay, this is the firing line. You're going to keep your gun pointed down that way. The targets are over there. Keep your gun pointed down that way. When you set your gun on the bench, always set it down like that. If you're walking down there to check something, set it like that. Just don't let that laser, don't let that muzzle be pointed at you or anybody else. That brand new student will pick that gun up. They'll get a question in their mind, and they'll say, hey, what about? And see what happened? Do you see what I see? You're over there. You're the instructor now. Here's the student. They're asking. Now, they're being real safe with that trigger finger, but boy, that does not feel good to have that muzzle pointed at your face. Because if that's a 9mm pistol and they make a mistake, you could end up with a bullet in your brain, just like that. So when you're helping someone, especially a new shooter, I would start them off with something like this, a 6mm. This is made by Walther, it's a PPQ, and let them make their mistakes with this. And if you see that muzzle starting to come, ho, 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 you gotta be able to say stop. They need to know what the stop command means. If it's a sluggish, slow person and you say stop and they keep moving, you don't need to be teaching them anything about firearms. They need to go learn some other things in life first. And I've had people like that. Rode in the car with a girl and said stop, and she went 2 more blocks while I was saying stop. Stop, and I mean stop like now, stop. It turned into a conversation. So if you see someone with a gun like that, even an airsoft, and they begin to drift towards you when they get curious about you need to say stop and say, hey, watch your muzzle. You don't have to be rude to them, but watch your muzzle. Discipline that thing. Teach that thing to stay over there. Keep it out of my face. I do not want to see that hole. You should never be looking down. And people will do this on the range, believe it or not. Now focus right here. They will be on the range and try to clear a gun like this. They'll say, okay, he told me to pull the mag out, and I'll do that. And then they'll reach up here, and they will be pointing that gun right at you on the range with supervisors everywhere because they want to be able to hold it like this, and they're not disciplining their muzzle, and they will kill you. You got to pay attention. So it takes a little bit of discipline. It's not just common sense. There's no such thing as just common sense is a replacement for training. Common sense, by definition, is knowing some details about the machine that you're working with, and you make a decision based on that information. If you don't have the details and the basics of what you're working with, there's no way you can have any sensory perception or common sense about the next thing that you're going to do. Where does this go? I don't know. I hadn't had any training. Let's see. Well, see that common sense may say, well, there's a square hole and a square peg. Okay, that's about where common sense is going to stop right there. You're not going to know that this gun right here has a chamber. You're not going to understand that until somebody teaches you. Say, well, I always knew that chamber's there. You learned it sometime. Somebody taught you in the past. So you got to think like that. So that's lasering. Lasering is when that muzzle starts to sweep and go across things that are precious, things that you do not want to accidentally. You don't want to do that. You don't want to pick the gun up and have it like that. You don't want to lay it here. You don't, look where that's pointing, okay? That's the laser. See where it's pointing? It's pointing at that bowl right there. When you reach over here and say, well, I need to get this ammo out of the way, you just broke the rules right there. See that? You lasered yourself. So I'm not moving the gun. Doesn't matter. The gun is still pointed right there. Let's do it with the Glock. Okay, I'll even leave the slide back so it's super safe. Look at that. See where it's pointing? Now you reach to get a mag, so I'm going to sort through these mags. See, you're getting in harm's way. and say, well, it's locked back and it can't shoot. I know, I'm trying to teach you something here. You do not want that pointed at anything precious. These are about $20 a pop. I don't want to be aiming at my magazine. So always know where your muzzle is pointed. That's muzzle discipline. Always know the condition of your gun. You need to know that at all times, okay? So we'll go ahead and leave that just like that. So here's the next one. The next question is, how can I add an external safety to my Glock? All right. Now, some people get really excited about, you know, the military. They wanted to make sure that the Glock had an external safety on it, and they had to put a little thumb safety and try to make it like a 1911. And there is no safety on a Glock, no external safety. So what do you have for safety? Well, you don't have an external safety, but neither does Grandpa's revolver or any of my revolvers. My Ruger Super Red Hawk, it doesn't have a safety on it. You fill the cylinder up with 6 bullets and you close the cylinder up, and if the hammer's down, it's got a transfer bar that protects you, but if you pull that hammer back, it's going to go bang as soon as you touch that trigger. No safety at all. So on one of these, the best safety that you can get that's a mechanical external safety below $100 is one of these. You order from a company, a good quality company like this. This one is We the People. And I don't get paid by them to say this, but I like it. It's got some nice little tabs there. They're kind of angled towards you. You shove that down beside your belt. This is a pancake style holster, and that will grab your pants there and there. And then you take this gun. Now notice, I'm not going to laser myself. See this? I'm pretending like I got a laser shining out of that barrel. I know the gun's empty. I've already proven that. But even in doing that, I'm a little bit of an angle off. I get the snout in there, and then I go in. Now that's your safety right there. So how can that be a safety? This gun can't fire unless you pull the trigger. See that? Say, well, what if a lady didn't have that and she just stuck that in her purse, unscrewed these, and wanted to use that as a safety? She could, because guess what? They were really wise. They got a cover on the inside. They got a cover all the way to there. You can tighten that even tighter and make it where you can barely get it out of there. But see how that trigger, the trigger is the bang switch. This gun will not go bang unless you push that trigger. So that is the answer for a safe gun. Now, the next question comes up. Can I carry a Glock with a round in the chamber? All right, watch this. Now, watch carefully. See that? That's an empty gun. We're going to prove it. Empty. Did a pinky check. Did that. I've already checked it. I didn't rack because I knew that the gun's empty, okay? If you want to say we'll do that, rack for practice. Put that up. Pinky test. So now we know that the gun is empty. Now we have one magazine with one round. We're going to load the gun. Here's the next question. If I load that gun like that, now it's dangerous. I'll let that go like that. Now there's one in the chamber, isn't there? Well, let's see. Magazine said I gave up the one I had. You put it somewhere. It's not a magic trick. Yep, that one's in the chamber. So how do I keep that gun from going off? You don't ever touch the trigger. How can I make sure I don't touch the trigger? Keep your fingers straight. But what if I'm going to carry it? You buy you a good quality holster. Now notice this time this gun is live and hot. I don't want to shoot myself, so I don't laser. See how where my laser is going? It's going out that way. My muzzle, I'm disciplining it. I go into the holster. I go in slowly. See that? That gun is safe. You can't fire it. See? You could throw it down. You could throw it. I'm not going to throw it because I don't want to scratch the brand new. It's going to go bang. It's not going to shoot. It's not going to go bang. So is that safe? Yeah, it's safe. But here's the deal. If you get in a situation harm's way where you really need to shoot that gun fast, should I shoot this? Should I shoot this gun just to show what I'm talking about? Is that possible to do that without somebody freaking out? Let's pretend like a bad guy comes up, okay? I'll make sure I got dogs everywhere. I'll make sure all my dogs are clear. All my dogs are clear, okay? I'll do this faster than a dog can come out of a nap. So the bad guy comes up. This is on your hip, on a Glock, no external safeties. So what kind of information do you have to have? The only thing you have to know is front sight press. So you pull the gun out. That's it. It goes bang. See the slide lock to the rear? Say, well, what happens if you had it loaded, but you did not have one in the chamber? Okay, let's do that. Now, rack, you know it's empty. Lock it up. Check it this way, check. Check this way, check. It's empty. So now I'm gonna put the slide forward, okay? Some people wanna carry a gun just like this. They wanna leave that trigger fired. The gun is empty. They take a magazine, it's full of bullets. I'm just using one for demonstration. They put it just like that. Then they say, oh, there's no way. See that gun, that's a good, safe gun. It's so safe, there's no way it can do anything wrong. I just feel safe about that. Then they put it in their holster. Oh man, that thing's safe. I can carry that all day long. I can jump off of buildings. I could ride horses. There's no way anything can go wrong with that. Then they put that inside their belt loop, get it good and tight. They're carrying this with them. They let their shirt tail hang over it. And a bad guy comes up and he pushes in on them pretty tight and gets them in a bind. And they can't get their gun out of their holster. They finally do get it out of the holster. Now he's in real close with a knife. He's got one hand around their throat and the knife is drawn. Now what are you going to do? This hand's all bound up. He's got it behind your back. And you say, well, I didn't never think it would happen that fast. When you draw that gun out of that holster, you better be able to draw it out and have it blowing fire out the end of the barrel. Just as soon as you draw it, it ought to be ready. Now in this case, I mean, I can make the gun work. I could take the rear sights and go down and I could cock that, put a round in the chamber and fire the shot. But you don't have time to do that when somebody's wrestling you down to the ground or they're in your face too close and they're right in your space. You don't have time for that. So what is the best way to carry a gun? Now this is personal opinion, but I think it's been proven many, many times through the years, is you put that in there like that. You cycle that round into the chamber like that. You put that into your holster. Watch, I'm very careful. See where that trigger finger is? Watch my laser. Laser's coming out the end of the barrel. I'm not flagging myself. I'm not going across myself. I put it in the holster carefully. And now that gun is safe. It's not going to shoot. So can you prove to me that you can drop that gun? Yes, I can. Somebody asked me about that. How can that thing be safe? How does the drop safety work on a Glock? Okay, I'll answer that question. But first, let's make this gun clear. How do we do that? Very good question. Pull it out of the holster. Step one, make sure that trigger finger is nice and straight. Pull the mag out, mag goes out. That mag's empty. Is the gun empty? Not till you go rack. Ready? Here we go. Rack. There goes a bullet. Off on the deck. Off on the dirt. Rack number 2. Lock it to the rear. Pinky test the chamber. Visually check the chamber. Pinky check the mag well. Visually check the mag well. I can see sunlight. Keep that pointed down range. So now it's clear. How can you make sure that that gun will not fire when you drop it? Watch this. This is so easy. Inside this gun, there is something that looks like a little dumbbell. I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to try to make it where you can see it. You have to come in really close on this. Focus right there. Your firing pin is right there, okay? That firing pin comes up through that little hole right there. Now watch, I'm going to push that hard. See, you might be able to see the firing pin be flush, but you'll never see it come out that hole. Why? Because right there is a little dumbbell. It's on a spring. There's a spring on the other end of it. I'm going to use this as a pointer. The old ones, these were totally round. On these, they beveled them on the front and the rear so they can skate over it a little bit better. But when you push that in, see the spring's got a spring to it. Now, you don't want that cruddy. You want to keep it clean. But if that's pushed up, that little piece is shaped like a dumbbell. Inside the slide, there is the shape of a dumbbell. If it's down like that, which is its normal way it sits all the time, your firing pin will not come out that little hole in the breech face. It will not come out that. See that? But if I push that up, now I can push that firing pin up higher, and you can clearly see the firing pin. See it? Now watch, I'm gonna pull it back. We'll get it out of there. You'll hear it click. There's a little click. That was that popping back out. That is a drop block, a firing pin block for dropping. So if you drop this gun from the Empire State Building, it hits nose down, that firing pin will not generate enough inertia to be able to do anything. But even if it could, that's got it blocked. That little dumbbell right there has got it blocked. Say, well, what makes that little dumbbell move? Glad you asked. You have to be the man on the trigger or woman on the trigger, the operator. When you push that trigger, that little device right there, that little tab of metal, is what comes to the rear. See, it's forward like that. When it's cocked, this gun's cocked, it'll be forward. When you pull the trigger, as you're pulling the trigger, it moves that little ramp. See, it's got a ramp to it. It's got a slope to it, and it's going to slide very carefully. It's going to push that little dumbbell up and give it room for the firing pin to go at the last second. As soon as that gun fires, everything goes back to normal. Everything's recocked. It's loaded again. That's going to be back down like that. It will not, this gun will not fire unless you pull that trigger. So that's a good drop safety that Glock built in. Excellent design. So I feel very safe for that. Now say, well, is that thing, is it 100%? No, you could get that so full of crud that would stay like that, and then you wouldn't have a firing pin safety at all. But that's one of the reasons you keep your gun clean. So I had one more question, I think. Let's see. I think maybe more than one. I'll look at my list here and see what we got. Round peg in the round hole, square peg in the square hole. Put the big end of that in like that. It's got a little half moon cutout on the barrel. Put that like that. And when you do this, don't get in a big rush. Just go slow and easy. And go slow and easy and make sure that's good and flush. And then you want to make sure your gun functions. Should hear a click. There's my click. Okay, so that takes care of that. We're going to keep this loaded stuff away. We're going to use that empty one. This is another way to lock your slide to the rear. Watch this. That slide will lock because that is pushing that slide stop up with that little follower mouth right there. That little orange flag is what makes that gun lock. So the next question that was asked, and I see if I got this one. They asked the question, I guess I got a couple more. One is, I got my Glock, and I love my Glock so much, and then I oiled it really good. I really put a lot of oil on there, and then my gun wouldn't fire. And what caused that? Well, you remember when I showed you that firing pin just now? If you get oil down in that hole where that firing pin is, that's going to cause a hydraulic lock. Just like shock absorbers on your car, the way that the shock absorber works is it's got a piston with rubber rings on it. It's got a cylinder and it's full of oil, and it's made with some little holes where it can bleed some of the oil through. And as that car goes to hit a bump, it shock absorbs by squirting that oil through that hole. This is such a tight tolerance that if you get oil down in that firing pin hole and you squirt that full of oil, what happens is when you go to pull that trigger, the striker will try to send the firing pin forward, and as the firing pin tries to go forward, it'll be dampened by all that oil. You got way too much oil in there. You do not need to have any oil at all on the firing pin on a Glock. Follow your instruction manuals, and they'll tell you it only gets one little drop on each cleat, gets a little drop here on the barrel hood, and that's about it. You don't need very much oil on a Glock. So don't over oil your Glock, and definitely don't get it down. Don't get it down here where it's in that firing pin hole. You go to spraying a bunch of CLP, say, boy, I'm gonna military this thing up. I got me some military CLP. And you go to squirting and spraying and stuff, and it goes down in that hole. It can make this gun where you have a failure to fire, an FTF, fail to fire, because of too much oil in the firing pin hole. So keep that in mind. So now you know that. Okay, what else? Do I need to pull the trigger, dry fire it to field strip my Glock? Let's see about that. The answer to that is yes. So here we go. Let's say the Glock's in this condition right here. I decide I want to field strip the gun. What's the steps I got to do? Step number one, that finger is straight. Here we go. Finger straight. Step two, pull the mag out. Mag is coming out. Notice I don't touch the trigger. I just push the mag out. There, the mag goes down. You can use this thumb, but I'm doing this for illustration purposes. Rack, 1, 2, nothing came out. Rack it to the rear and lock the slide to the rear. Come in with the pinky, check, visually check. Check the mag well, check, checking on aisle 1, on aisle 2, it's all clear. So now let it go forward. But at this point right here, when I go to rack this to the rear and pull my takedown levers, you got to dry fire it. Now some people don't like that. Some people have accidentally fired a shot. Some people shot themselves in the leg. Some people shot themselves in the face. How many stories have you heard about somebody that got shot while they were cleaning their gun? It's because they didn't follow those basic procedures that I just showed you. So you put the gun in a safe location, pointed at the dirt, and you go ahead and pull the trigger. After you pull that trigger, then and only then can you do this. Pull that back, the slide back 1/10 of an inch. Pull 2 takedown levers, 1 on each side. Pull those down. Once they're down, you can pull that slide off and you can go to town and clean that like crazy and you won't have no problem. But if you don't pull that trigger, you're not going to be able to get that gun apart. Now, some other guns, you don't have to do that. I know on the SIG, there's some types of SIGs. There's also an F&N that you lock it to the rear and then you move it a little bit and it has a takedown lever and then you can pull it apart. This, you do have to dry fire the gun before you take it into the point of being field stripped, taking the slide off. You've got to be able to dry fire it. So here we go. Now we're good and safe. Let that go. And we will holster the gun up just like that. So I think I answered all the questions. Let's just check. How does the drop safety work? We got that. Too much oil made the gun not shoot. Do I need to pull the trigger, dry fire for a field strip? Yes. Is it safe to carry a Glock with a round in the chamber? Yes, as long as you have a good quality holster. And on this, I would say don't buy a little cheap nylon sock thing that's a little sticky, stinky holster, and you're going to shove that in your pants and depend on a little flap of worn out Velcro. Don't do that. This is about a $60 holster. We the People makes this. It's Cadex here. Some of them are hybrid. There'll be Cadex here and leather here, or Cadex here and leather here. The main thing is when you put your gun in there, you're using this as your main safety. So make sure that it's tight. I like to take my screwdriver and tighten that, keep tightening it. They put a rubber O-ring in here, but if yours doesn't get tight enough, sometimes you can take that out or change the arrangement a little bit there. Get with your manufacturer, make sure everything's kosher, but you need a good tight grip. You should be able to do a somersault with a Glock on, or any modern pistol in a modern holster. You should be able to go out in your yard, do a somersault. Don't do it with a loaded gun, but do a somersault with an empty gun and say, hey, it stayed in place. No problem at all. You should be able to climb ladders, do all your work. It's just a tool. It's a tool. So it should stay on you and be ready to go. Hope that answers the questions. I think I got them all. That was 10 of them.
Good.
I think I got them all covered. So we know now the pinky test came from Mr. Glock in page number 20. If you've got a Glock, that's a good way to do. If you want to practice your muzzle discipline, make sure you're not pointing it at anybody. Get you one of these. It's a Walther PPQ, and I think it's actually built by Walther, but that's a fun little training tool. You get used to your trigger, get used to doing your mag release and dropping little pellets. But that's a nice little training tool, and watch somebody that's never fired a gun before. Make sure they don't flag you. So hope that answers questions. Hope you found this to be enjoyable. I will be breaking this down into shorts. So when I break it down into shorts, if you see a short, you can always click on the little tab that says created from. And when you click there, it'll take you through the whole video. So thanks again for watching. And we wish you the best. Enjoy your shooting. And be ready at all times. Be ready for anything. Be safe. Over and out for now. How was it?